I saw The Lord of Darkness, The Awakening of the Light pop up on the eShop new releases and decided to give it a shot. I like visual novels, fantasy stories, and honestly, I thought the art looked really cool. Little did I know, The Lord of Darkness is actually a game made almost entirely by AI. I think it's likely that there was some human supervision while coding the game, and the music was made by people, but I am confident that the story, the art, the dialogue, and all of the text was authored by generative AI. I can't prove that without a doubt, but the credit option on the home screen only lists music credits, so I think it's a pretty safe bet. Let's break it down, starting with the artwork. At first glance, I really like the art. It's clean and detailed. The colors are vibrant, and each background really pops, especially on the OLED Switch. The backgrounds change frequently, and for the most part, they're genuinely nice to look at. My first inkling that something funky was going on was when I noticed that the main character looked identical to his best friend. I couldn't really tell them apart, and I started thinking, that's a weird choice. Then I started to examine the backgrounds, and I began to notice the telltale signs of AI art. There's architecture that blends the background and the foreground in impossible ways. Symbols and patterns on clothing are inconsistent and nonsensical. Eyes have blob pupils, cockeyed pupils, and sometimes no pupils at all. Even the map in the background of the main menu is created by AI. Look at these nonsense words. That doesn't mean anything. Neither does that. On the one hand, it looks nice. On the other hand, if you're studying the images, it's hard not to notice. But honestly, would any of that matter if the story was excellent? Okay, so I can imagine a small indie developer with an ambitious story to tell turns to AI in order to help them realize their otherwise financially impossible vision. In that case, I feel like AI would just be a tool to facilitate the real artistic goal, which would be the story itself. Personally, I would find it pretty easy to overlook any AI art in that case. But unfortunately, that's not the case here. Once I realized that the developer was using AI artwork, it immediately became obvious that it was also using AI to write the story as well. Let's start with the language itself. You will hear the words light, dark, shadows, ancient, secrets, and knowledge over and over again, especially ancient knowledge. You'll find an ancient crystal that imparts ancient knowledge. You'll meet characters that tell you about their secret ancient knowledge, and you'll defeat enemies using your acquired ancient knowledge. Nearly every route in this game will have you discovering, hearing about, or using ancient knowledge. Consistency of phrases like this is a pretty obvious sign of generative AI. Then there's the dialogue. Every single character sounds identical to every other one. There's no variation in dialect, tone, or mood. There's no subtext or emotion in any of the dialogue. It is all very direct and expository. Except that there's so little happening in the plot that the exposition is all about how the characters have courage, their secrets, although never revealed, and their ancient knowledge. The plot is equally soulless. It starts out kind of interesting with a history of the cosmos and how the world was created and a bit about the deities. But then you're dropped in this small town as a blacksmith who has a dream about a coming dark force, and you decide to set out on an adventure to find your destiny. Then things happen, like joining a pack of wolves for roughly 2 minutes, where they give you a vision of ancient secrets, which imparts ancient knowledge, and you move on. Or you'll find an ancient cave and discover an ancient shard inside that grants you ancient knowledge, and then you'll move on. Nothing builds upon what's happened before or comes back into play later. It's generic, but on a level that I don't think we've ever really experienced before. Generic stories are generic because they are obviously recycled versions of other stories. But even the most generic stories have some imprint of originality from the author. Yet any originality found here is likely derived from a computer model whose only frame of reference is the stories it's been fed, which sort of makes this the ultimate generic fantasy story. Even the title sounds AI generated. At least the music's decent. Gameplay in The Lord of Darkness consists of making various decisions along your adventure. And they're terrible. The very first one you have to make is this. Your best friend hears that you're leaving town and wants to come with you. You can either tell him to stay home, or you can tell him that you'll discuss it with him in the morning. If you tell him to stay home, he'll inexplicably come with you. And if you tell him you'll discuss it with him in the morning, he'll stay home. What? How does that make any sense? Later on, there's a decision to go north or south. If you go north, you'll run into a thief who tells you to meet her in a cavern. You'll go meet her, and she kills you. The end. If you go south, you'll meet a completely different thief, and the game will progress. Your choice of north or south was made without any context to how it would play out. So at this point, I'm feeling kinda duped. So let's take a look at the game's eShop description. It says it features a tree of destiny. Here's how that's described. Experience a dynamic progression system that reflects your choices and actions. The Tree of Destiny allows you to see how your decisions affect the development of the story and discover different paths and endings. Each choice can open new possibilities or close others, inviting you to explore all facets of this vast world. So how does this Tree of Destiny work? This is literally it. This image of a tree is the Tree of Destiny. You can't even see which node represents what decision. The Lord of Darkness's eShop description also highlights that it contains over 50,000 words. That might seem like a lot if it had been written by a human. The game also boasts it contains over 300 full-color, and I quote, artistically designed settings. But look, I want to reiterate something I said earlier. If an indie developer has a genuine story that they want to tell, I am not at all against them using AI art to tell their story. It's a cost-effective way to immerse the player in a world, and this is the one place that the Lord of Darkness actually succeeds quite well. But having the story itself be written by AI makes this whole product feel like a low-effort cash grab. This is the first real example I've seen of generative AI being used in a video game, and I wish it had been used for a good reason. But it seems to me that the reason they used it was to just create the whole product without relying on any human creativity. But alas, this is ChatGPT's story through and through. Despite this game being a complete disaster, there's something quite interesting about it. I imagine we'll be seeing a lot more games like this in the very near future. If this game is the 1.0 version of a ChatGPT fantasy visual novel, I'm curious to see what a 4.0 version might look like. This 1.0 version is pretty bad, but it's still understandable, readable, and although soulless, it tells a halfway coherent story. I really had to look before I could tell that the art was made by AI. Will I be able to tell it all in the 4.0 version? I'm glad I played The Lord of Darkness, The Awakening of the Light, if only to see how far AI has come, and for a glimpse into the future of the power of AI in video games. But, as a game in its own right, I'm going to give The Lord of Darkness, The Awakening of the Light a 3.6 out of 10. Thanks for watching, and if you like this content, please like and subscribe.